Well, I do have a view. I mean, there have been doubts expressed about human rights in Rwanda anyway, and whether it is legitimate to even consider sending people there if one can overcome the other issues of principle. No, I think we have an obligation to protect people who fled for safety, and if there are people who are claiming that they are unsafe in their own country because of their LGBT position, then of course we shouldn't. We shouldn't send anybody to another country where they're not safe. That's part of the Geneva Convention. It is part of our principles as regards human rights. First of all, the British asylum system is dysfunctional. To that extent, I agree with the government, but I don't believe that breaching the 1951 Geneva Convention, which is what sending people to Rwanda would mean, I don't believe that is moral. I believe it is a shameful policy, and I believe it is one which will be challenged in our courts. I don't think it's even going to work, and I think it puts us on the wrong side of human rights. I don't think we can do that. Now, there are other ways of dealing with the people coming across the channel. The people smugglers are unpleasant people, and people drown in the channel, and that is awful. But there are better ways of dealing with it than simply saying the threat of sending people to Rwanda will stop the people smugglers. It won't. We have traditionally given people the right to go to the courts when they feel something wrong is being done. And Priti Patel has been making hostile statements to lawyers for a long time. Lawyers are there to defend their clients, and if our legal system allows it, then it is good. There are legal challenges to what the government does, and I think that's healthy. I don't see many legal challenges in Russia. I don't see many legal challenges in China, but I do see legal challenges possibly in many democratic countries, and it's part of our tradition. And that's what lawyers do. They represent their clients. It's not for the Home Secretary to attack independent lawyers for doing their job. It's pretty expensive. The Australians have found their scheme is pretty expensive. So, yeah, it is costly, but I don't think it's going to work. I really think the legal challenges will make it very difficult for the government to send people away. In any case, what happens if somebody who's fled from Afghanistan finds that they end up in Central Africa? I don't think this is the right way forward. And what the government haven't said is what happens if the asylum claim is rejected by the process in Rwanda? What happens to them then? Where do they go? So it isn't even properly thought out. First and foremost, we've got to have a proper discussion with the French. It's no good shouting at the French and blaming them. I think the French have also got I think, to improve how they handle things, but we've got to establish a proper friendly relationship with the French. That's point number one. Secondly, I think we need a Europe-wide refugee policy. I think each country doing a different thing doesn't work, and the way to deal with what is a really difficult situation as regards refugees, long before the crisis in the Ukraine. The refugee situation with Syria, Afghanistan, and Sudan, and so on, was pretty difficult. So I think I would like to see us move towards a Europe-wide refugee policy. That's going to be difficult. So the first step is to have a proper rapport with the French. I think Brexit is a disaster for this country. It's not good for Europe, it's a disaster for this country. I probably knocked on more doors campaigning to remain in the EU than anybody else you've met. I make that claim. But I was mainly in London, which was largely a Remain area. However, take back control meant keep them out. Initially, it meant keep the EU people from the EU countries out, but it just transformed into keep other people out. And the government has set its sights on keeping the numbers down. Refugees are a very small part of the total anyway. We've got quite a lot of it in inward migration. I don't think that's a bad thing, but take back control clearly meant keep them out. There were quite large numbers some years ago when, before the smugglers put people onto dinghies, they put them in the back of lorries. But that wasn't so obvious in terms of visibility to the cameras. A boat coming ashore in Dover is more obvious than somebody throwing people out of the back of a lorry on the motorway. So that's one point. Secondly, the majority of the people who've come have been given refugee status. Not all, but quite a few have been. So in a sense, these are people who I think have legitimate claims under the 1951 Convention, which we should honour. And so I don't think the government argument is very good. In any case, whatever number the government are now saying, it's a small proportion of total inward migration. We've got a labour shortage in this country. We need people. So we've got to look at a sensible migration policy and a sensible and humanitarian refugee policy. I would like the cross-channel dinghies to stop, but I want it to stop in a way that recognises the legitimate aims of people who've got to Calais and want to come to this country. Why do they want to come to this country? In many cases because they've got family here, and surely family reunion, linking up with families, is one of the best motives for people coming here. I think if I hadn't got on a Kindertransport, I doubt if I'd survived the Holocaust. So to that extent, the alternative to coming on a Kindertransport was pretty bad. And remember, in that time, 1938-39, no other country would take the Kindertransport children. It was only the UK, even the United States said they're additional to quota. So Britain had a very generous policy, although there were objections to it, in taking 10,000 children. Now, did we have a worse time? The journey was much easier. 2 days on a train. I said goodbye to my mother, and 2 days on a train and got to London. In terms of the journeys that some of the child refugees are undergoing these days, whether it's from Syria or from Afghanistan or the Horn of Africa, the journeys are terrifying. They're fleeing. They're spending a year, or sometimes up a year, 6 months. They're in danger. They're very vulnerable. So the journeys are much worse than they were for the Kindertransport. But they are also fleeing great dangers. So I think we have to respect that it's not identical to what happened in 1938-39, but I think we have to respect the need to give people, particularly young people, safety. A Syrian boy said to me that he saw his either uncle or father killed in front of him by a bomb in Aleppo or Damascus. I mean, these are terrifying experiences that people have fled from, and we have to respect the dangers they faced, the country they've left, the persecution, and then the long and dangerous journey. And we have to explain to people what it is. The reason why there is more sympathy for people from Ukraine is because it's shown up on our television cameras more. We don't have television cameras showing what's happening in Syria, or even what's happening in Afghanistan. We do have television cameras showing daily what is happening in Ukraine. So there's more sympathy. So part of the process of education is to say Ukraine is shocking and we must be sympathetic to Ukrainian refugees, but remember there are others who've had equally shocking experiences. I think the Ukraine situation is interesting. Admittedly, there is a problem which we've got to speak out on. The Ukrainians are white, and the Afghans and the Syrians are perceived not to be white, and we've got to make sure that human rights are not based upon the color of skin, they're based upon human need to escape persecution, and we've got to go on saying that. So there's much need to welcome a Syrian or an Afghan as there is to welcome a Ukrainian. I want to welcome them all. We can't welcome everybody in this country, but I want to welcome in principle, whatever the background is, and see how many of them can come here as part of a wider European approach. Well, look, can I say, you asked me about Turkey and the region. When people say to me, why don't the Muslim countries take more? I say, just hang on a minute. Turkey has taken between 3 and 4 million refugees, Lebanon and Jordan about 1 million each. I make that 5.5 million in total, and we're arguing about a few thousand coming to this country. So let's keep a sense of proportion as to what other countries are doing. And we have to respect that. Yes, I think we can do better. I don't think we can take them all in this country, but I think we can do better than we have done. Actually, you know, the numbers are no larger, in fact, a bit smaller than they were a few years ago. So we can do it. And remember, I repeat, we have a labour shortage in this country. So some of the people coming here will actually help to fill the labour shortage. It may be nice and agreeable that we have a very low unemployment rate. It's one of the only things which I praise our government for. But we actually need more people. When the Germans took 1 million Syrians, and it was a humanitarian thing, and Angela Merkel paid a price for that electorally, which is why the public opinion argument is important. But it also helped German industry. Now, I just think we should look at it overall in terms of how this country can move forward. And if we can combine supporting for human rights with helping to deal with labour shortages here, then that's not a bad thing.